Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Revoltech Amazing Yamaguchi ARKHAM Knight version 1.5, aka Red Hood, because ARKHAM Knight being Red Hood was the most obvious plot twist ever. I don't know why they bothered to do that. It was very strange in the game. And oddly enough, he doesn't come with his tank, which was like 99% of the battles in the game. Anyway, this guy is a pretty cool design. Once you take all the blue stuff off, even then it's kind of cool. But it's Red Hood in his ARKHAM Knight outfit. So there's some good, there's some bad, and we're going to talk about all of it. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. Alright, before we look at the figure, I do want to show you my package. It does show him in his ARKHAM Knight gear rather than his Red Hood gear, which, I mean, I like the blue. It's a good look, but it's Red Hood, so it's just like, blue Red Hood with ears. I don't get it. Gray packaging. Some people like it. I prefer the more colorful stuff they used to do. There you can see both versions. That's pretty cool. And there you go. You can see them both. You get all that stuff in the box, so that's nice. Alright, so, yeah, it's a fine packaging if you'd like the new minimalistic gray, boring look. Remember when McDonald's used to be fun looking and now it looks like that? Oh man. Anyway, this guy stands just about 6.5 inches, just a touch over that, and that's going to make him about, let's call it 16.5 centimeters. It's going to depend on how you pose him. This guy has the Revoltech build. It's about the same height as Darwin. Way less gorilla-like than we normally see, and that's pretty good. He's got pretty good proportioning overall. Let's do a question of the day. If you are familiar with this design for this character, did you like the whole ARKHAM Knight storyline, or did you just think like, okay, yeah, it's definitely just Red Hood, just be Red Hood, why are you pretending to be a different character for us to find out you're Red Hood? It doesn't make any sense. That's what I thought. Okay, so let's talk about this. He doesn't come like this in the package, he comes with all the blue stuff. We'll get to that in the accessories, but it doesn't affect what we're going to talk about. So let's start with the aesthetic like we normally do. It's pretty good. For Revoltech standards, they have a lot of paint on here. Sculpt work is usually pretty good by them, but the paint work is clean and nice, and there's a lot of it. That weird camo is fine. That's basically what it looked like in the game. But all the detail paint work is pretty nice. It looks surprisingly good for a Revoltech because they often have bad paint jobs. And this one's nice. It doesn't have like weird glossy spots or things like that. Some things have a little bit of a finish to them where other things don't. That's flat, that's like a satin. We have the metallics. The helmet is really nice with that pearly red. That looks really, really good. Yeah, aesthetically it looks great. The only downside, there are two things, well, three things if you want to count one of them. We'll start with the least thing first. That's the elbows. The standard Revoltech elbows being the ball hinges that are just sitting there. Really ugly. Alright, the second thing would be the ball hinges for the shoulders. Kind of hidden there, but still not very good looking. But then the thing that bothers me the most is the way they cut up his belt that like droops around his crotch. This is all supposed to be one belt, but they're separate pieces. And I get why they did that. They do that normally for belts on Revoltech, but this one in particular is just really, really ugly and offensive to me that they cut it up. Otherwise, it looks really good. The one downside I have is that his chest is kind of flat and skinny, especially for having armor on, but otherwise it's really good looking. They did a great job with this aesthetic, from the game I mean, and they turned it into a Revoltech figure pretty well. So yeah, it's nice. I like it. I'll give it I'll give it an aesthetic rating of, I'm going to say 8 out of 10. I think those few issues do pull it back, but it does look really nice, and you could easily argue 9. That's your call. Now, as far as accessories go, like I said, you get all the blue gear. So you get all the different pieces that are blue. There's some for the forearms, the chest, the biceps, the shoulders, the knees, the head, you know, lots of different pieces. You do get the one chest piece that is like an intermediate piece that's red that matches the blue one. So there's that. They're all painted very nicely, so that's good. Decent spread of hands, nothing too elaborate, but it's enough to get the job done. And then as far as weapons go, you get the rifle, the knives, the pistols, and then the not lightsabers. And they all look pretty good. I don't remember the zigzag knives, but everything else looks about right. So hey, that's a pretty good spread. You get the display stand, of course, too. But yeah, it's pretty good. I guess they didn't really have a choice other than to do the interchangeable pieces. I think that takes away from the figure a little bit because it seems like they could have spent a little more money on the figure if they didn't have to do all of the different pieces. But I don't know how they could have done it other than having 2 separate releases, and maybe that would have been the way to go. But then I'm guessing most people would have just bought this one, so that's probably why they did it. Anyway, I will go, I'll say 9 out of 10 for accessories. That's a pretty good spread. Now let's see about the articulation. Obviously we have our ball peg for the head. He can look up pretty well. This collar gets in the way, so he doesn't look up super far, and he also can't look down super far the way they've done his neck. It's for Revoltech pretty limited. Leaning side to side is also really limited, even rotation. This collar should have been way softer or way more mobile. It's neither. Like, you can flex it, but not effectively, so you're going to be fighting with it the whole time you're trying to pose the head. So just be aware of that. For the shoulders, it's your standard Revoltech shoulder. It doesn't have the slidey side joint at all. It's just the old school Revoltech shoulder, which obviously doesn't always look great. When you're not using it to bring the arm across the chest or something like that, it gets really ugly and gappy and not good to look at. So that sucks. And the reason he doesn't have this slidey thing over here is because of the interchangeable chest. So that's kind of a bummer. That's what I was talking about earlier. And then you have these shoulder pads, and they are on a little ball peg. They do very little to actually hide that joint up there. They don't move enough. I'd like to see them on a better joint than just a tiny ball peg like that. See if I can show it to you. There you go. Just because I want to hide the shoulder ball hinges more. They're still very obvious, but you do get the range up there. You can bring the arm across the chest pretty well, and that's because in addition to this ball hinge, you have the ball down there, which is really, really nice. So that works. So you can bring the arm across the chest. Sure, that's good. But yeah, you still get that ugly joint. So you have to decide if you're okay with that. I know many people are not, and that's why they're not Revoltech fans. Some people are, and that's why they might be okay with it. You do get a bicep swivel. It's at a weird angle. And of course, the shoulder piece can rotate around as well. Play with it to try to make it look as good as you can in whatever pose you find, and hopefully you end up okay with it. That's kind of the rule of Revoltech. Ball hinge here, ball peg down here. So if you do it this way, it's way less gappy and you get about 90 degrees. If you do it this way, you get way more range, but you get a giant gap. So again, pick your poison. For the wrists, the hands fall off super easily, but they have little ball hinges in there, so it'll work well enough, but they do fall off too easily. For the torso, he leans forward and back really nicely, even with the interchangeable piece. Side to side is not as much, rotation is fine, but then you get a ball peg down here as well. So he doesn't lean back that far, but considering how far he leans forward without much gapping, it works surprisingly well. It's still pretty good. It's not the best thing Revoltech's ever done for a torso, but it's nice. And then obviously you have the soft crotch piece. It's a couple different pieces really, and then these guys are on little ball pegs too. So let's see how the hips work. They're a little bit less annoying than some of the other Revoltechs. They come off at a slightly different angle, it feels like. But they still do come off at an angle, so you're going to have to play around with it to get the legs to where you actually want them. But you do get that ball peg for the hip, which allows it to come forward. Also, you have your thigh swivel in here. The thigh swivel is still at a crazy angle, which makes it really difficult to pose this guy easily. Like, you're going to be fighting with the weird angles and things in the hips to get him to do what you want him to do. But you should be able to get enough range out of it that it'll be okay. For the knees, it's one of the single jointed knees that has really good range, so that's good. Definitely overextends if you want it to. Gets really ugly, you probably don't want to do that. The knee pad is on a little ball hinge, which is weird because it doesn't actually help anything. Like, you can stick it forward, but you can't, when you bend his knee, you can't bring it back at all. So I'm not sure why they bothered with that, especially putting a little ball hinge in there. It has no place to go, no place to really do anything, so it's kind of limited. And then the boot itself, I don't know if it's supposed to, I guess it's supposed to rotate, but it can't because of that knee pad. There's nowhere for it to go. So again, not probably Revoltech's best thing. And then for the ankle, you have the ball hinge with the ball peg combo. You're not going to get that foot very far forward either way. You're going to have to use the toe hinge, which we'll get to in a second. You can get it back pretty far, but one of the reasons you don't get as much range is the way they did this. Which, like, yeah, it's part of the character design, but you probably could have figured something else out because this is getting in the way a lot. So be aware the ankles aren't as good as maybe you would expect. But the toe hinge is really nice. It's well placed and well sculpted, so that's a plus. So his articulation, it's definitely not the best Revoltech for sure. It is a pretty good looking one, but its articulation is fairly limited. For Revoltech, I would say it gets an 8. It's still good, but it's definitely not, like I said, it's not the best. Okay, so time for the final verdict. I think this figure looks really cool. I like the interchangeability of the parts, even though it does probably cost the figure some other things. I think it's probably the best way to do it. He comes with good accessories. The paints are super clean. The sculpts are good. It poses well enough. I like it a whole bunch. As a reviewer and as a collector, I think you guys probably will too, unless you hate Revoltech. So I'm going to give it an overall rating of, I'm going to say 8.5, just because it is missing a few details, a few features that you might have expected, but you could easily argue for a higher score depending on what you value. But for me, the articulation in the arms is unfortunate, given that they don't have the extra joints, and it's still really ugly and only useful for very specific poses. This one doesn't quite do enough to make up for it, but it's still a really, really good release. I'm curious what you guys think, so let me know in the comment section below. But that's it for me. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos just about every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.